uh, a boy who was killed in a gang fight,
Mhm.
and he was killed by a teenage boy. And that mother was allowed, at least in America, you're allowed to see the person after they've been convicted, just to tell them
Mhm.
whatever you want to tell them to kind of put a closing on it. And when she came in to see him, he was squatting down in the corner of the room with his hands over his face, like, I've ruined my life. I've killed somebody. I've ruined his parents' life. I didn't know what I was doing. And she saw all this remorse and depression and suffering. And she went up and embraced him because she no longer saw him as the killer of her son. She saw him as a son of a mother who neglected him. And she ended up, when he got out of jail, adopting him, and they lived together. So that's inconceivable, isn't it?
Yeah.
But this is not the only story. This happens all the time. So the heart has that capacity to forgive if we tap into it. And
What is the healing power of forgiveness?
yes, I remember very distinctly. There was one forgiveness workshop we did in London. And there was a young woman who had, I think, a very deep issue with her father. And she'd never gone through the forgiveness process. And a lot of people who take forgiveness courses, on the first day of the course, they're they're a little bit afraid to have to deal with the issue because they've kind of buried it. That's how a lot of people deal with it. They just
Mhm.
bury it so they don't
Mhm.
have to, because it's so emotionally charged.
Mhm.
So it's quite common on the first day that people look very serious, some even scared, and the expression on their face is, "I don't know if I can do this. I don't know if I can face this." Right.
Yeah.
So that she was the worst, probably of any student I've ever had, at least the worst in that class, maybe of all time.
Mm.
And you should have seen her on Sunday night.
Mm.
She looked like a dancing, lighted up puppet
Wow.
because when she let it in our course, we asked people to come up when they let it go. They have their
Mm.
story on a piece of paper, and when they want to let it go, they tear it up and they put it in a basket we have in the front.
Mhm.
So you get to see them when they come up and their expression and what's going on. And when we saw her, it was like someone, it was like some toxic substance had just left her body,
Wow.
and this healing balm of light had entered. It was obvious. I mean, it was a visual thing. She went from black to white
Mm.
in her demeanor, and she was so happy. Like she said, this was like the best thing that ever happened to me. So on the material level, the emotional level, and the spiritual level, it's healing. We've been talking about the spiritual level. When you live in alignment with what's spiritually correct, how do you feel? You feel amazing,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
How do you feel on the emotional level? It's gone. When the anger's gone, the resentment's gone. You just feel this burden.
Yeah.
And how do you feel on the physical level? It takes energy to hold that down because most of us hold it down. We try to forget it. So we're
Mm.
putting all kinds of energy into suppressing it, repressing it, running away from it,
Mhm.
and putting energy into hating that person. So
Mm.
just imagine when that all goes, what kind of healing transpires. It's incredible. It's one of the most transforming experiences, at least that I've ever had. I can't speak for everyone,
Mhm.
but there are so many things connected to forgiveness, compassion, humility,
Mhm.
kindness, and so forth, like spokes in a wheel.
Yeah.
There's so much connected to it. And there's so many bad things connected with resentment. So when you pull out the old spokes and put in the new spokes, it's a
Mhm.
total transformation.
Yeah.
All that negative energy, what we call tamagun energy in Sanskrit, is all gone, this low energy. And the sattva, the higher energy, it replaces it so naturally. It's kind of like if I fly from New York in the middle of January
Mm.
and fly into Durban, it's your summer and mangoes and papayas, nice beaches. It's
Yeah.
kind of like it's day and night. So forgiveness it's like that in people's lives.
Mm.
It's like the summer, the tropical summer from the winter storm. That's my
Yeah.
experience personally and seeing it in others.
It sounds magical. Absolutely magical. Yeah.
Yeah. So what I would say to people, if you have any resentment,
Mm.
you shouldn't hold it for another day,
Mm.
because until you let it go, you won't realize how much it's harming you.
Yeah.
And all I can say is it's harming you a lot more than you realize. And a lot of you may not even realize you have it because you've suppressed it for so long and said,
Mm.
no, it's not a problem. People, it's still a problem until you let it go completely.
Yes.
So, I would encourage people, if they want to take our forgiveness class or some other forgiveness class,
Mhm.
to not think that, well, it's not such a problem. And no, trauma stays within you, within your body, within
Yeah.
your heart. Is really the worst thing you could do is just try to suppress it and ignore it.
I think